Welcome to Wrestling with Heart, a podcast looking at pro wrestlers giving back to their community. Join me, Stanley Carr, as I interview wrestling's hottest names who use their platforms as entertainers to raise awareness and do community service. Hello and welcome to another edition of Wrestling with Heart. This is the show where we talk with professional wrestlers and professional wrestling personalities about their lives in and outside of the ring, as well as doing acts of charity work, community service, volunteering, and spreading positivity. We're always about the positivity here on the show, always about the positive vibes. And with me right now, I've got a very special guest. If you grew up watching the WWE back in the late 80s and early 90s, you might recognize who our guest is today. He has worked with legends such as the Bushwhackers, Bobby Heenan, so many others. Actor, comedian, wrestling personality. Pleased to welcome the one, the only Jameson to the show. Welcome to Wrestling with Heart.
Well, thank you, my friend.
All right. It's my pleasure. So tell me about your childhood. Where are you from?
Born in Brooklyn, moved to a suburb of New York City, probably at 1 or 2, and then moved upstate New York, where it's very country, and that's where I was raised up until like the high school years. Then came back down to the suburbs, and my childhood was great. I mean, really into sports and loving parents. Didn't know we were poor. They hid it pretty well that we were poor, but things got better as I reached my teen years in terms of just a loving, still close with all my brothers and sisters and their families, and just a nice sports-filled upbringing.
Okay. So play a lot of sports like basketball, baseball?
No, that basketball, no. No, it was more a lot of baseball, a lot of football. Hockey later on, but watching, it was always football was the sport.
Okay.
Yeah, I had hoped to become a professional football player when I was 10, but just wasn't that kind of athlete. But loved sports, and my wrestling connection is that I used to watch wrestling. I wrestled too. That's another sport I did, and was a casual. I'm talking now, age 10 to say 18. Casual. Always loved the guys who did real wrestling moves like that you would see in the Olympics, and Mil Mascaras was my hero. I don't know if your listeners know who that is, but he was the guy.
Mil Mascaras.
Yeah. And then I kind of, left it for a while. And when I finally got into the entertainment business and saw what Vince did with the WWF, with hooking up with MTV and all these great personalities and all that, and I kind of got back into it. But my work in there has nothing to do with my wrestling fandom. After 10 years on Wall Street, was miserable, got into comedy, stand-up comedy, and was doing a lot of improv shows. And Vince saw me in an improv show. And at the time, they were trying to get the Bobby Heenan show off the ground, which was only lasted 4 episodes, but they're freaking hilarious. And he was looking for like a co-host for Bobby that could go toe to toe with him in terms of improv, back and forth, and
the dynamics.
Yeah, and Vince saw me in this show, and I recognized him in the audience, because it wasn't like a theater show; it was in a restaurant. There were 6 different dining. It was a murder mystery. 6 different dining rooms, and so it was small. Each room probably had 30 people in it. So you can, and the lights, there was no like stage lighting, or it was a restaurant. people bought a ticket to see a murder mystery and eat their dinner. And my character, I was doing Jameson for that show. And I had him roaring all night. And I introduced myself after the show. He was very nice, but a little bit like, yeah, I don't want to have a conversation. More like, yeah, great show. You're great. And that was a Saturday night. And at seeing him, I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to work for them as an actor, as a whatever.
As a character, yeah.
Yeah. Trying to get my acting comedy career off the ground. And I kind of by Monday morning forgot about it like that, because that's how the business is, trying to get jobs, auditions and all this stuff. And sure enough, WWF called the restaurant, the producers of the show, and said, how do we get in touch with Jameson? We want him to come in. And they called. And that Monday afternoon, after the Saturday he saw me, I had a contract with them, which was cool. It was great. I had a blast. It was only like 3 years if you take out the time for when I was off contract. It was probably like 30 to 36 months that I was actually under contract to them, but it was great.
In that time too, it was like you had mentioned, like the rock and wrestling connection, the MTV. The business was very hot, back then. Led by guys like Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage and Andre the Giant.
And the timing was so perfect because it was like the birth of pay-per-view, and wrestling. There was so much money to be made that they can, afford a schlep like me. Like, not that they couldn't afford me, but I mean that they could, he was a master, Vince, at, first nailing down TV contracts, because he was with USA, local channels in New York. What was the other one? Super Saturday. Anyway,
Saturday night's main event.
Yeah,
NBC.
but there was another. Oh my God, there was Primetime Wrestling, followed by Raw. What was the other one on Saturdays? I don't know. But anyway, he was a master, and he was branching out, going, where no other wrestling company ever really went. What he uncovered, and just the buildup, and I never appreciated, to me at the time, it was just an acting gig. It was another acting gig. I went in, tried to do what they were looking for me to do, and never really grasped how far reaching, worldwide even, professional wrestling is. And
it's mainstream.
I was gone 20 years before it was brought to my attention, through Facebook and, all the social media and the internet, through the internet. There was a long period of time where nobody knew who the actor was that played Jameson. And there was like a search going on. And people would call me up, and I would be like, yeah, I don't want to entertain. Again, I'm still in the 20th century. I'm still social media. And I did not, I don't understand. I had no idea until people reached out. And one of the guys was Joe Bruin. I don't know if you know that name, who runs the New England Professional Wrestling Hall of Fame. He saw me on the internet doing a comedy show, and called where I work. At the time, I was running a nightclub, and said, "Are you really Jameson? We want to put you in our Hall of Fame." And then I get a call from a sports writer from upstate New York? Are you really Jameson? And I was like, wow, 20 years later, people really, they want my autograph. They want to know. I couldn't believe it. Um, and I've since, for the last 10 years, really recognized and have come to admire and love wrestling fans. There's nothing like them. They're just so devoted. And yeah, it's given me, it's given me like a second life in that.
Well, the cool thing about professional wrestling is that if you were in the business or have been in the business for so many years and there's like that one character that you played, fans will forever remember
Crazy,
that character.
crazy. People quote, I'll go do a signing somewhere, and I don't do many. I don't think I've averaged one a year, maybe one a year. But people come up and they say the lines that I did on the Bobby Heenan show or prime time. Oh, I remember when you did, and like I don't even remember all that stuff. But I love that people remind me of what you know what I meant to those telecasts. Humbling. Wrestling fans humble me.
And, the legacy that you've continued to leave behind, resonates with so many people as we're talking here. You also got to work with the Bushwhackers as well. What was it
Yeah.
like working with them?
I felt bad for them when I guess Vince, whoever, said, "Yeah, we're gonna team you up with Jameson." I felt so bad for them, but they made me feel so comfortable, and because my character was so not a wrestling character, or like he was a pathetic human being, and these guys, they would say, "Yeah, come on, you're putting us." You're giving us life, and I think they were just trying to make me feel good. But yeah, it was great. I loved working with them. I can't think of anybody else that I would have liked to work with more than them. I'll tell you another one that I loved working with was Ted DiBiase and Sherry.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, we did two prime times together, and it, they, they were both pros. It was so easy for me to find stuff and they beat the crap out of me, which was great.
Yeah, I mean, you have to be, in the business, especially for managers and personalities, you have to be ready for any kind of physicality.
Yeah, but like, I think that's why a lot of the wrestlers appreciated me. Maybe not at first, but was that I was in really good shape. I had a fighting background. I was not a gym rat, but close to it. And I was had some gymnastics experience. So, and as an actor, I wanted everything to look real. So I would tell them, hit me, throw me, do what you got to do. I'm good. I'm good. And there's a lot of stuff where you see Jameson getting the crap beat out of him that the wrestlers respected me, that I was a non-wrestling personality that, let them throw me around. And yeah.
Do you keep up with the business today at all?
I get calls from time to time to do, signings. Oh, do I? In that sense, yeah, all the old timers, I see them at shows. And so in that sense, I do, but not the new stuff. I really don't watch. I really don't. Yeah, I have watched it. And the funniest thing is my son is a very successful child actor. Um, and when he was, I'm going to say 9, maybe 10, WWE called his agent There was no connection between they wanted Jameson's son. I had nothing to do with it. And they called his agency, and my son was red hot at the time. They said, send us your best 8 to 10-year-old boy for a pay-per-view event at the Meadowlands in Jersey, not far from us. And his agent called me and said, he's it. He's our best kid. And he got to do this event. It was the Extreme Rules, Extreme
Rules.
20, I'm going to say 2013 or 2014, maybe. And I'm thinking that they want him to come in to do a promo. And it was actually, he was in the main event. He dictated, it was John Cena against the Wyatt family.
Mm-hmm, Bray Wyatt.
Yeah. And he actually changed the outcome of the match. John Cena was going to walk out the gate after knocking out Bray, and all of a sudden the lights go down. And when they come back on, there's my son standing in the open gate of the ring
because it was the sheet mask on.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And no, he didn't have the sheet mask on then. He was like bug-eyed, like possessed, and he started singing the theme song.
The whole world in his
right.
hands. Yep.
And they mechanized his voice, so and he played it great, like his eyes bugged out, and it became a big thing. So a lot of times when I get asked to do these shows, they said, bring James, and believe me, he signs more shit than I do, because he was a Disney kid for 3 years. He played Kevin James' son for 2 seasons on CBS, and big movies, and he's way more famous than I am. And the funniest thing was, we get to the Extreme Rules, the event at the Meadowlands, and Vince comes out and he gets down on one knee to tell James what he's going to be doing. And he had to go under the ring, and somebody would come bring him out and what he had to do. And then he looks up at me because he's down on one knee, and he goes, "You must be his dad." And I said, "Yeah." "Vince, you don't recognize me, do you?" And he says, "You look really familiar." So I made the Jameson face. I went, he goes, "Oh my God." And he hugged me, and we hadn't seen each other in 25 years. And it was great. It was a great experience. And how did I get off on this tangent? I forgot the question.
We're talking about keeping up with the wrestling business today.
Oh, yeah. And I tried, and actually, the year James, my son, did that gig, and a year after that, he kind of stayed in touch. So I stayed in touch with what was going on, and there was some great athletes during that time. Cena was great, but so much other stuff going on, especially me being his acting coach, stage mother, and all that stuff, that I just kind of lost track of what was going on, and haven't really felt the pull to go back. Love all the old time stuff.
Yeah, it's great to go back and watch, especially now with the network and with all the streaming services now getting access to watching all the old clips of Hogan and all the other guys.
Yeah. And it was a great time. I was very lucky to be there at I think the height of, everybody had a great gimmick. There's not a lot of gimmicks now, like the way they were so defined in their Hacksaw, Jim Duggan, Sergeant Slaughter. For me, it was much easier to watch when you had these real defined. I'm going to tell you, it was great. IRS, Bray Wyatt's father, every character he played, he sold it. He was IRS when I was there. Erwin
Our
Schuster.
shyster, yes.
Yeah. Schuster. Yeah, Shyster, right. These guys, and I'll tell you another one that was so good. Mr. Perfect. He was great in interviews. They had a lot of problems. And I know this because I was there at the studio so many times, but a lot of the talk was that they needed guys that were good on camera, on the mic when they weren't wrestling. And those are two of the best right there. And Ted was great. I love Ted. And I love Sherry. I mean, we stayed. She was the one person when I left there, 93, that I stayed in touch with, that she'd send me a Christmas card every year that we would. Yeah, what a great lady, and funny and talented and really pretty when she was in street clothes. Anyway, go ahead. Next question.
Yeah, we've lost so many
Oh my
talented people.
God.
We're talking about them. Sherry, Bray Wyatt,
And
Bush.
Bray and my son had a thing together, and they were trying to put them together for a signing, like, 10 years later or whatever it was. Yeah, we've been really unlucky when it comes to death.
Mm-hmm.
I was supposed to do a signing with Macho Man's brother,
Lanny.
Genius, yeah, because we had a thing at the Royal Rumble,
Mm-hmm.
and it was going to be that weekend, and he died in the middle of the week before that signing, and yeah, I mean, and Butch was at WrestleMania when he passed, and first time in this country in over 20 years, and they were going to fly him all around to do these signings, and one of them was going to be reuniting with Jameson, and so excited to do that. And again, I'm bad luck.
It's just horrible, when you hear these stories and read about these tragedies,
Jeez.
because you've been friends and have shared the road and gone down up and down from city to city,
Yeah,
town to town with these guys and girls. It's hard,
it really is. And Bray was especially tough. That might have been the worst one.
Mhm.
Bobby, of course, passing was sad, but it's different. Bray was in the prime of his life. Yeah, that was a hard one.
Yes. Well, let's switch gears now and talk about some of the stuff you've done outside of the business. I know you've been involved with a lot of charity work, done a lot of community service stuff over the years. What kind of things that you can share with me that you've done outside of wrestling, that you've helped with in your community?
Well, I got involved with Meals on Wheels, which is a great thing, and to the point where I actually went to work for them. And my daughter, who's 25, about to be 26, now has a big job there. I got her an internship there when I was working there, and they loved her and they hired her, and now she's in a big position. But I've spent a lot of time doing things. The biggest thing is that James, my son, when he was in, this is a great story. When he was in, I'm going to say second grade, we kept going back and forth to California because he was on this Disney show. And he would always miss, because he was working, his grade school talent show. And when he was in second grade, he said, "Dad, I'm doing the talent show this year. I don't care what you say. I don't care. I'm doing it this year." He never got to do it. So I said, "Well, what are you going to do?" He says, "I'm going to sing that John Legend song." I said, "James, please don't sing. Let Daddy write you some stand-up. Go do." He says, okay, I'll do that. So I wrote him like a 5-minute thing, and he memorized it. It was, and at that age, I think he was 8. He was 8. He went out and killed. And basically the 5 minutes was him ripping his mother and father to shreds. And it was, and I'm sitting, I'm watching him, and I'm saying, wow, this kid could get on a New York City stage and do this routine. And because of the age thing and everything, he couldn't work in a place that served alcohol. So, unless it was a fundraiser. So, that's what we did. I went on Facebook and said, hey, and I have a ton of Facebook friends that are professional stand-ups, because I did stand-up. And I said, anybody have a gig where my 8-year-old could get up and do 5 minutes? And this guy, God bless him, Gotham Comedy Club, which is a big club in New York, he did fundraisers every week for animal rescue. And he said, yeah, bring him down. His very first show, he crushed it. And he did a comedy show a month. And it got us. Now, we were already animal lovers. We had 4 rescues at the time that this all came to pass. But I realized that James could make, every shelter he goes and does a show for, making a couple grand, which is huge to them. So we always made ourselves available. And we were doing he was on a TV show out in California, and it was December, and very popular event out in California is their Christmas parade, which goes up, the street with the all the stars, what the hell is it? What am I thinking of? The Walk of Fame.
Yes,
that's
Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Right. So there were a bunch of groups in town for the parade, and this veterans group for wounded, it wasn't Wounded Warriors, but something very similar. They had all their families there. A lot of them were in wheelchairs, but they had their kids there and everything. And at the time, James was really popular on a Disney show. And they were staying at the same hotel we were staying while we were shooting. And some of the kids recognized him, and they actually came to me and said, can he march in the parade tomorrow with us? And he was so happy to do it. And he signed a ton of pictures, took so many pictures with people. It was so help. And he's now got this thing in him where, yeah, Dad, yeah, I don't need any money. Let's just go do it. Let's go. He's a good kid. And we love doing that. So, and I still do volunteer work for Meals on Wheels. I still, even though I don't work there anymore, still connected there heavily, especially because of my daughter. But yeah, it's just a feel good thing. I'm so busy right now, though. I got to get over to Meals on Wheels at some point.
Yeah, I mean, the stage dad is very busy. He's got a lot of irons in the fire.
Yeah, and ever since my son turned 18, he's 19 now, I went back to act, which I took a break for like 15 years because he was booking much bigger jobs than I could book. And so I've recently gotten back into it and done a few commercials since then, a film. So I'm busy with that. And he's on his own now. He booked a film. I went down one day. He's an adult. He's 19 years old. He doesn't need a stage dad anymore. So.
Yeah. Well, what is it about giving back to the community that gives you the most joy?
I think knowing that I may be there someday needing this kind of help is probably, the strongest incentive for me to go out and spend a day doing whatever, gardening, cooking. Yeah, because, maybe I'm going to need that at some point. I'm getting close to that age.
Yeah. Everybody needs as much help as possible. So the more we can do for others,
Sure.
they
Of course.
can hopefully do the same for us.
Yeah. And thankfully, my two kids have that same inspiration and do plenty. Believe me, they do plenty.
Yeah. Well, this has been wonderful getting the chance to speak with you. I just want to say thank you for coming onto the show. It means a lot to me and to my listeners and viewers that are watching this on
Yeah.
YouTube. Where can people find more about you on social media or if they want to get in touch?
I'm only on Facebook, but they could certainly send friend requests. It's John Jameson Digiacomo. Just put in D-I-G. I mean, they'll find it. They don't need to know how to spell Digiacomo. Yeah. I just learned how to spell Digiacomo.
Okay. Well, thanks again, and you're more than welcome to come back.
Oh, anytime. Give me a call, brother. This was fun.
Absolutely.
For real.
Have a wonderful day.
You too, bud.
Take care. This is Wrestling with Heart. I hope you found this podcast to be informative and entertaining. If you did, please hit the subscribe button and look out for the next edition.